So we are quarter of the way through the F1 season, and we're coming up to the second triple header of the season in a couple of weeks. But we've just had the Miami Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri has made it 3 wins in a row, and with me, I'm joined by Nicholas to break down the Miami Grand Prix and look back at what we've seen so far through the F1 season. How you doing, man?
Very good. This season is proving to be a pretty good one, a pretty unexpected one from the start of the season in some ways. But yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the McLaren dominance. Well, let's start with the title battle, because, I mean, that is where it's going to go. We knew the McLaren was going to be dominant, but for me, I have to say thank you to Max Verstappen, because I think what he's doing on track in qualifying, and even though he ended up finishing quite a distant 40 seconds behind the McLarens, what he's doing on track is at least giving us some entertainment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's fighting these McLarens really hard, but why wouldn't he? You know, the comment that kind of stood out to me after the race was the one of Lando saying that if Max wouldn't have fought us this hard, he would have been on the podium. And I immediately thought, like, well, hang on, flip this around. If you wouldn't have taken 4 laps to get past Max Verstappen, you might have won this race. If you didn't get shunted off the track by Verstappen at the start, you might have won this race. So it's not painted on Verstappen here. But yeah, it was a great. I mean, the first half of the race really was fantastic. Yeah. The second half was a bit of a snooze fest. We just got a bit of Ferrari drama, which I'm sure you were a big fan of. And we had Williams doing really well. But apart from that, no, it's all McLaren. And what stands out for me with McLaren as well is that Piastri, he just gets the job done. With Norris, I often got the feeling with Norris that one thing had to go wrong for his weekend to fall apart, and like a million things have to go right for him to win the race. And with Piastri, it's just, is the car quick? Yes. Okay, here's a win. Here's another win. Here's the third win. 3 wins in a row now. First time since 1998 that a McLaren driver's done that. He is just on it. If anyone made a prediction after the Chinese Grand Prix that he would win the title, they'd be feeling pretty good right now. So here we are.
No, I completely agree. I think Piastri, we've talked about how cool a customer we think he is. He's absolutely fantastic. And we're seeing him just develop more and more into this World Championship standard driver that he is. With Norris, I do believe his issue, and why I do think he's not going to be able to sustain a title battle against Piastri or against Verstappen, a realistic title battle, is because I do genuinely think that he is too affected by both positives and negatives. When something goes well, you really do see it boost his mood significantly. But something goes wrong, you see it absolutely drain the life out of him. Whereas Verstappen, what did he say after qualifying? He got asked, how do you do it? You've got, you've had your child, you've got things going on around your team, you have the sprint race where you have the collisions, the pit stops not going well, and then you go and manage to slap your car on pole. How do you manage to do it? And he said, just not having much emotion. That's what it takes. You know, you have to be able to just be a stone cold killer and be able to just, you know, not be affected too much by something. Maybe in the moment you're going to be a bit hot, but just be able to just reset. And I think you're seeing that from Piastri. You know, he should have won the sprint race. I think we all know that he should have won the sprint race. Yeah. But he didn't. Did he care? No, he had a bad qualifying, starts 4th, gets in the car, wins the race. And with Norris, I do feel that his kind of opinion on that Verstappen missing out on the podium was a bit ill-informed. Verstappen missed out on the podium because George Russell got the VSC, saved pit stop, and Verstappen didn't. He probably didn't know that, as obviously he's in his car, doesn't know everything that's happening. But yeah, Norris, I do see he's getting a bit chippy. So I do think a bit more of that pressure is getting to him. And Verstappen, for me, I really do see. And Jenson Button said it during the broadcast. He said that he was asked about Norris being very open with his emotions. And he said, would drivers take advantage of that? And he says, I would. So, and I genuinely do think Verstappen, the reason he battles Norris the way he battles him is because he sees Norris as someone that he can, if he's hard on, he can break him mentally and therefore potentially keep him ahead of him on the track. He battles Norris completely different to how he battles Piastri.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on the one hand, we really have to appreciate Lando being as open as he is about his mental struggles. But on the other hand, you are like flagging like, hey, I've got a weakness. And F1 drivers are some of the most ruthless people on earth. And if anyone knows that you can be got at, then well, you're gonna get got at. But on the other hand as well, and I discussed this yesterday as well. Lando, it's like he's had the Men in Black like thing every time it's like he doesn't know how to battle Max, and he's done it so often now. Like you have to know, you can't. It is physically impossible to overtake him around the outside. He is going to push you off. Like you cannot do it. I don't know why he keeps trying it. Piastri did it so well. Like his
Yeah,
overtake
very
on
well.
Verstappen was so well done. Faking going outside, hitting the brakes a little bit harder, letting Max outbrake himself, and then swooping back across, going through. I genuinely like I applauded that like physically on myself. That was such a good move. And then Lando, it took him 4 laps, and I look back at the data. So when he first tried his first overtake on Verstappen or attempt, uh, he was 1.6 seconds behind Piastri. And by the time he actually got past him, so almost 4 laps later, he was 8.7 seconds behind Piastri. So he lost almost 8 seconds behind Verstappen, while Piastri, I think, lost 2 seconds. That kind of stuff is the difference between winning a race or getting second. It's the kind of stuff that at the end of the year is going to add up when you're this
Mhm.
close to Piastri. And where you're not out qualifying him either consistently anymore, although he did this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, it took Piastri, 2 or 3 attempts to actually get it done. It took Norris so many attempts, so many laps. He got one done, went off the track, had to give the place back as well. It was just a
Yeah.
bit of a messy attempt by him, or messy racing by him. But I think this season we've also seen, like, if you go back to Bahrain, some of Norris's racecraft this season hasn't been the best. I think it's been a bit of a shaky area for him. But what's the lead now in the championship? 16,
16
16
points. But
points.
to be fair to Lando, like when he after lap one, I thought like the way he cut through the field, that was like I was
Yeah,
like, all right,
yeah,
here we go. This is really good. This is assertive. You're cutting through the midfield and going back past everyone. Here we
yeah.
go. But then it was back to square one when he started battling Max. But credit where it's due there, at least.
It is like a bit of a roadblock for him, I do believe. I think maybe not Max versus him, maybe because of the way Max does prey on what he may see as a weakness, is a bit of something that Norris kind of getting past your bully type thing. It's a bit different to anybody else on the track. But yeah, no, so Norris 16 points behind Piastri, Verstappen now at 99 points as well, so he's behind them, and then Russell only 6 points behind Verstappen after that podium. So Russell's still doing his thing. Another podium for him after what was a strong two qualifying sessions for Kimi Antonelli. Maybe not as good in the sprint race, unfortunate for him. Still managed to get some points, and in the actual Grand Prix, still managed to get a good load of points because the Ferraris had the Ferrari thing. But Mercedes look good. I think Mercedes look very good, and Russell, who knows, he could trigger that Verstappen clause if he manages to catch up with him by the summer break and push him into fourth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, Russell, Max, and Piastri have been the three best drivers on the grid by far this season. Russell again maximizing the result. I think for the first time, Antonelli was quicker this weekend on all bases than Russell. He out qualified him. Was ahead of him in the race before the VSC thing happened, but it was a calculated risk. Like, of course, you need to get that VSC, but still, Russell was banking on that to happen. So it wasn't pure luck. It was a measured risk that he was taking. But of course, it did fall his way. For the first time, Antonelli had his measure. So that's interesting to see if that can translate, or if it will be, one blip, or if it's a flash in the pan, or if this will be consistent for Antonelli. But Russell so far this season has been stellar, has maximized every single point. that he can earn. Kudos to him. He's been brilliant this year.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's really like going into that number one role, showing that was ready for that step up. I mean, last season I thought he was very good as well, to be fair to him, but I think a lot of that got overshadowed by a lot of people thinking, oh, is he only looking good because of Lewis leaving, Lewis being checked out? But he looked strong compared to his teammate last season. And obviously in his first season in Mercedes, he had this second season, he had a bit of misfortune, a couple of DNFs that weren't really his fault. But he really does look to be ready to lead that team. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with his contract at the end of the season. But we do need to talk about someone whose contract might be out by next race, and that is Jack Doohan. Wow. We all knew about the 6-race kind of clause where he was going to have his performance reviewed after 6 races. This weekend wasn't the best. He would have finished last in the sprint if it wasn't for Verstappen's penalty. Well, last of the people that finished the sprint. He finished last in the Chinese Grand Prix sprint because of the several collisions as well. And obviously had his lap 1 crash in Miami this weekend. It's not been the best season for him so far. So in Australia, obviously, he had a DNS. No, he crashed in the first lap of the race, didn't he?
Lap 1 as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, lap 1 incident.
Lap 1 crash. China 13th, Japan 15th, Bahrain 14th, Saudi 17th, and obviously Miami crashes in the first lap of the race, and it was entirely his fault as well. So Franco Colapinto has been sitting there waiting. It looks like he's going to get his chance. We all know how Flavio Briatore feels about Colapinto before the start of the season when they signed him as a reserve driver, that he called him one of the best young talents in motorsport right now, whereas Doohan wasn't even really Briatore's choice. So what do you think? How do you see this going on? How do you feel for Jack Doohan in general?
Yeah, I feel bad for Jack Doohan because he's been kind of 3-0 down from the start, and it does feel like, he's had a really bad start to the season. There's no two ways about it. But I think that's probably kind of, Alpine induced as well, because he knows from the start that, like, I have to, my life is on the line every single race. Might have overdriven the car, but still, when you look at the result, 2 lap 1 DNFs in Australia and in Miami. He in China, like you said, he had multiple crashes throughout the weekend, picked up a lot of penalty points for a lot of incidents that were entirely his fault. And in Japan, he has that massive shunt in FP2 at Suzuka because he didn't know he had to close the DRS when turning into turn 1, because he didn't have to do that on the sim, which is a complete driver error as well. He's just not been on it. He's had one good-ish weekend where he was like right on Pierre Gasly, where he outqualified him as well. I think he outqualified him in Miami actually as well. But overall, it's not been good enough. But how much of that is also because of the huge pressure that is on him from Briatore. And the language around him has been very interesting to me, because I've been on this topic also with our news videos quite a lot. And around, a couple of weeks ago we're going to give him until the summer. That was what Oliver Oak said. And even Flavio Briatore said that we'll give him until summer. Then around the Miami Grand Prix, Oliver Oak suddenly says, yeah, as of today, he is under contract. He and Pierre are our drivers as of today. I mean, he kept saying today, like, not next week, but today. And then around the Miami Grand Prix as well, the race started reporting that they're considering swapping him out at Imola. And then yesterday they say the swap is happening. Jack Doohan has been informed. He's out. Thank you. Good night. So the way this is developed is very, very peculiar. And I don't know how much of a leash Colapinto is going to have, if it's going to be any different, because he has a lot of sponsor money, and if he has a lot of almost literally credit in the bank, but also figuratively.
Yeah, I mean, I think just simply by the way Briatore, I think this is going to be this kind of new leadership of Alpine's kind of first hire. I don't feel like Doohan was their first hire. I feel like they were forced into taking Doohan. They had the testing run with Mick Schumacher and Doohan, and obviously Doohan won that out. And I mean, as soon as they got to Colapinto, Williams's press release when letting Colapinto leave told us all we needed to know. That they said this showed the best chance of getting him into Formula One this season. And it was a move that they thought would get him on the grid this season. So I think we always kind of knew that Doohan was going to have a very short leash, and I mean, it's proven it. It's shown, and it's not gonna be. It wasn't fair to him. It's going to be hard to perform under those circumstances anyway. But with Colapinto sponsorship money, he's a very likable character, very marketable. People loved him, very fun. He didn't finish in the best form last season either, which is the interesting one. We know he set the world alight when he first came into F1, but like after that, it was a lot of crashes, a lot of mistakes. So maybe on track, we don't know if that actually is going to be an upgrade. We know Colapinto is quick when he is put all together, but he also showed a tendency to make some mistakes that were quite expensive mistakes.
Yeah, interestingly, Colapinto was due to. I think he probably still will, but he was due to test this week at Zandvoort for Williams and Alpine. I was actually going to try and go down there because Zandvoort's like half an hour away from where I live.
Nice.
But yeah, what I thought was like they're going to let him do that test and then afterwards see where we're at, because obviously he's tested earlier this season at Monza as well, which was a day after Doohan's massive Suzuka FP2 crash, or on the same day even. I think it was the day after. Colapinto was already testing in an Alpine at Monza, which a lot of people saw as a sign as well.
Yeah.
Even though that one was probably pre-planned, but it was still, the timing of it and all.
So
but the fact that
unfortunate for
Alpine,
Doohan.
yeah, but the fact that Alpine have 4 reserve drivers, I think tells you all you need to know about how much confidence they had in Doohan and how much, the lack of credit yet in the bank there. It was just, it was such a bad situation from the start, and you kind of have to feel bad for him because he really hasn't had a fair crack at Formula One. But in the time he has had, he's not proven Alpine wrong by wanting to replace him straight away.
Yeah. He was down 3-0, but he didn't do anything to help the comeback. But another person that people might be feeling bad for, well, one of two people, Ricardo Odame, Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, or Lewis Hamilton. I will just quickly go into this because, Ferrari's strategy was the headline out of Miami Grand Prix. I have my views on what happened. I think a lot of people, including Hamilton, to be honest with you, were missing the point with I do believe that Ferrari didn't allow Hamilton through as early as he wanted to because Sainz was too close. I thought that was pretty obvious, but I think Lewis, obviously on the fresher tire, wanted to get through as quick as possible to maximize his chances of getting to Antonelli. I think he would have got to Antonelli anyway. No, he took off 1.5 seconds in 10 laps. So it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to have the pace anyway. Maybe could have closed down a little more, but it would have been very difficult. And maybe I just don't believe he would have had the pace. But the radio messages were cinema. It was interesting. We saw sassy Lewis, and it was kind of the first. China was minute, but this one was kind of the first like big. Leclerc wants to be ahead. Hamilton wants to be ahead. Who do you pick? And I genuinely thought for a second before I realized that Sainz was right behind that was them saying, no, Leclerc is staying ahead of you, until I realized that they were going to let him through.
Yeah. I think the way they've done it, neither of them is happy. But after the race as well, Leclerc said that that he was not being told that Hamilton wanted to be let past because Hamilton thought he was quicker. Because Leclerc said, I had not been in communication with Ferrari, but I had quite a lot of pace. Like I could have gone quite a bit quicker. I was saving my tires on the hards, so I could have gone quicker. But the team weren't talking to me; they were only talking to Lewis. And I think you and me both know that when you're in a relationship, Luther, communication is key, right?
Yes, very key.
And they are very much not communicating well right now between the two drivers. Maybe the two respective drivers and their race engineers are doing an okay job at speaking back and forth, but like the inter-team communication, inter-garage communication, we've already seen 2 or 3 races now that is really not going down well. And it just turns into this like melodrama that's not necessary. And another theory, by the way, I have on Hamilton is that with these sprints, right? Is Hamilton like turning into F1's version of a cup team where he's like not good in the normal races, but he's really good in the sprints because he won
Man
in China.
United,
Now he's a
Europa League
podium.
versus Premier
Yeah,
League.
exactly. Like he's rubbish in the normal races, but then he's in the Europa League final. I'm gonna keep an eye on this because this is quite a development. He was so good in the sprint. That move
It
over
was
Verstappen.
very good. Yeah.
That move over Verstappen was so good, and he was like
Incredible.
on it, bang on it in the sprint, and in the race he's like average again. It's
No
incredible.
pace.
Same in China. Yeah, is he? Maybe he's F1's version of a cup team now.
It flipped in the same day, literally from the highs of getting third in the sprint to then qualifying 12th. Same day, looked like two completely different drivers. It was absolutely incredible. But I agree. I think Leclerc wasn't told that Hamilton was going to let him pass. And that was another proof of it. They were telling Leclerc that Hamilton was going to let him pass, but hadn't told Hamilton to let Leclerc pass when they did the reswitch. Ferrari, you need to work on it more. But thank you very much, Nicholas. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you back here, and we will be back very soon to talk more about F1. This season has been interesting. Verstappen, keep making it interesting for us. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully more teams join them at the front of the grid. Thank you very much.